I have found the meaning of life. The meaning of life is Focaccia! Gotcha! For real, I've been searching high and low for the perfect focaccia recipe, and I've gone through about 5 of them. This is the one. This is the recipe I'm going to marry. Oh, this? Oh! You're going to want to start this recipe the night before. You need 500 grams of flour, 2.5 grams of yeast, and 10 grams of salt. Mix all the dry ingredients together. Then you're going to add the same amount of water in grams as you did flour, so that means 500 grams of water. I want to show you a little trick. This is a photo I took of one of my 2-cup measuring cups filled with water. I know it's hard to see the water. Notice on the left-hand side of the measuring cup, it shows the milliliters measurements, ml. This is the exact same thing as measuring in grams. To prove this, look at the bottom of the photo. You can see that I am also weighing the water in grams to show you. The scale says 500 grams, and if you look at the top of the photo, the water line is at 500 milliliters. Pretty cool, right? So what that means is, if you have a recipe that gives you a liquid amount in grams, you can quickly translate that into milliliters just by pouring in the equivalent amount into your measuring cup. For example, this focaccia recipe calls for 500 grams of water. I bet you that if you look on your measuring cup, it will have the milliliter option. So what you do is you simply fill the cup until it reads 500 milliliters. Warning, warning, warning. This trick only applies for liquid grams. It does not apply to solids. So remember to only use it for liquid measurements. The dough will be really wet and sticky. You want to cover it and then leave it overnight on the counter. I cover mine with a handy dandy shower cap. And the next day it looks like this, all beautiful and bubbly. You're going to want to use a 13 by 9 baking tin or a glass baking dish. Now, with the baking tin, you must be sure that this is absolutely non-stick. If you have one shred of doubt that it is non-stick, then you need to cover it with parchment paper. Trust me on this. I did not use parchment paper at one time and I had to throw it to the birds. I'm using a glass baking dish, 13 by 9 inches, and yes, I am lining it with parchment paper because I know this method works. You're going to want to pour 3 tablespoons of olive oil on the bottom of the parchment paper. And then spread it around with your fingers. Using your dough scraper, take the dough and scrape it from the bowl into your baking pan. Once the dough is in your baking pan, you want to stretch and fold it towards the middle. This is going to be kind of hard because the dough will be really slippery. So just try to take each 4 corners, stretch it out just a little bit, and then fold it over toward the middle. Do that with each of the 4 corners. And then what you want to do is you want to flip the entire dough ball over so that the belly button is on the bottom. When you do this, it means that all the oil will get wrapped up inside the dough of the focaccia when it cooks. Once the dough is flipped over, you're going to take your fingers and glide them underneath the dough until they touch. When they touch, you're going to just stretch the dough out a little bit. This is kind of hard too because you feel like you won't be making any progress, but that's okay. Just kind of stretch the corners of the dough out to the outer edges of your baking pan, just maybe a few times or for 30 seconds. Be careful not to rip the dough, but if you do, that's okay too. Just very gently stretch it out from underneath. Now you just have to leave it and cover it for 2 hours. I use this big thing that I got, but you can use whatever works. While the dough is rising, prep your toppings. Be as creative as you want. You can use leftover vegetables, olives, capers, sliced onions, dried herbs, fresh herbs, cheese, meats, anything that you want. 30 minutes before the end of the second rise, preheat your oven to 450 degrees. When the oven is ready, put your toppings on. Here I used a half cup of chopped Kalamata olives, and 2 teaspoons of dried rosemary. For the rosemary, I chose to grind it up in my mortar and pestle. This is totally optional. If you don't have a mortar and pestle or you don't feel like chopping it up, then you don't have to do this at all. In most cases, you will want to add a small amount of coarse salt. If you don't have coarse salt, then that's okay, just use whatever salt you have. But in this case, because I'm using olives, they're salty anyway, so I chose to omit the salt. Add 3 more tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Remember, don't be stingy. And now for the fun part. You get to play the piano, even if you don't know how. In other words, just simply dimple the dough with your fingers. This ensures that all of your toppings get baked in the heavenly goodness of this focaccia. Once you're done playing Beethoven's Fifth, pop it in the oven for between 25 and 30 minutes, or until the top is golden brown. Once you take it out of the oven, allow it to sit for 5 minutes. Then remove it to a cutting board to cool. If you can wait until it cools to eat some, good luck. I always burn my fingers in excitement and anticipation. Sweet beans, this is delicious! What are your favorite toppings for focaccia? Leave me a note in the comments below. If you want more easy and delicious bread recipes, click on this video right now. Ciao for now! Wanna say hi?
B. That word is. Martin.